Good afternoon, I'm Brent Huisman. I work in the Jülich Supercomputing Center, and I'm here to talk a little bit about ARBOR and ARBOR-GUI. First, what's ARBOR? I see a lot of familiar names, so I guess you are a little bit familiar, but go ahead anyway. ARBOR is a library for implementing performance portable network simulations of multi-compartment neural models. And with it, you can simulate large networks of morphologically detailed spiking neurons. ARBOR is had a fresh start, so we are about 5 years old now, and that means we could start with modern code and write it for HPC from the start, or at least taking it into account. It works also on your own machine. We have an open development style on GitHub and Gitter. And we have a, we think, very friendly interface and documentation, which we're still expanding. And I guess a core idea in ARBOR's design is the separation of the science from the execution. Those things we do are best not to mix. So that means you define your scientific setup without mixing in execution details. And the idea is then that you can save or store this scientific description and move it around and run it wherever you need to run it. Probably you'll prototype on your own machine and then maybe want to run something on your local cluster. So that's the idea here, that the scientific description does not have to change when you move to another sort of execution. So that means we do our best not to have any leaky abstractions, discretization. That's not part of the science, that's part of how you execute it. So it's not in our scientific description of the problem. And yeah, to model the science, we have a declarative domain-specific language, which is continuously expanding in what it can actually describe. So that's nice. Yeah, the status of ARBOR, our latest release is from this early summer, 0.5.2. At that time, we had 42 forks, 1,300 commits, a number of source files, lines, and at least 24 contributors from 9 institutions. So that is an indication that our project is has users and people are interested, and yeah, we're really coming online, so to say. We have some collaborations ongoing. FIPA and Arborio are the biggest ones. In the FIPA cooperation, people are trying to extend ARBOR with plasticity processes to simulate and analyze eventually the long-term adaptive dynamics of large-scale neuronal networks. And the Arborio group is trying to write a large, or trying to create a description of a large-scale model of the inferior olive cerebellar complex, to see if they can do that in ARBOR and how happy they are with that and how performant it is. Then LFPI, the LFPI project is investigating ARBOR as a possible backend, and then there are co-simulation efforts ongoing together with Nest, Elephant, and TVB. So what are some highlights in that by now not that new release anymore? That's a simplified way to describe connections and junctions. We have now the ability to resume and restart simulations, which is important for, well, it is not complete, but in the context of steering or co-simulation, that's an important feature, important first step to enable. Then we have added some STDP functionality already, post-events functionality. And then a detail in our DSL. You can now label instead of label items, placeable items instead of use indices. So that means you can, like say, you add a threshold detector somewhere, you can give it a name instead of knowing that it was number 57. We have expanded our tutorials. So getting an idea of what Arbor can do should be made a lot easier by that. Our CI has been significantly expanded. Our Python and spec packages are building them is automated, and hopefully soon also continuous delivery on EBRAINS would be automated. Then we've worked hard on some file format compatibility. SWC we supported in various forms already. That has been, well, it's a continuous process. Having proper support for all kinds of SWC files out there. NeuroML for cell morphologies, I should stress. The rest is very much on our agenda, but morphologies are there at this time. NeuroLucida, the ASCII format, and then our own Arbor cable cell. So that's both a DSL and a format now. You can design cells or store them in Arbor's native format. What's happened since the release of 0.5.2? We have added a mechanism, ABI, which means you can now compile your own mechanisms separate from Arbor and load them at runtime. So this makes it easier to adding them before meant that you would have to recompile Arbor. Now that won't longer be necessary, and you can compile your own in your own language of choice for your platform of choice, your mechanism of choice. And we have user-defined gap junction mechanisms. We had a small bug fix about zero radius segments. Apparently that happens. What's supposed to be in the next version is the Python performance profiler and expression representation of control volume policies. So our prioritization happen according to control volume policies, and we want you to be able to store them, and that means we need to store them in our DSL. The next release is planned for January 19. We are trying to switch to a regular release cycle of every 3 months. That includes regular developer meetings. The next one is tomorrow at 10 Central European Standard Time. And if you are interested in joining that, you can have a look at our news page to find a coordinate. And then the last thing, that's the GUI. I have 1 minute left. So everybody knows that morphologically detailed models have many moving parts, so it's very helpful to be able to see what you're doing every now and then. Our GUI supports at the moment importing morphologies and assigning dynamics and parameters, placing stimuli and probes, and getting out, you see on the bottom left, some basic graphs for such probes. And yeah, the whole idea is to get some visual feedback going on and to have a look at what Arbor thinks you're trying to tell it, because you live edit the DSL expressions, so you see directly what Arbor is. And yeah, as I said, you can run very short simulations. That's it. These are our coordinates. Are there any questions?